hotel closing to asylum seekers in your constituency, you welcome that?
Very much so. I mean, I've campaigned as hard as I can to get to this point, and I had a Westminster Hall debate about it, explaining some of the negative impacts it's had on the town. So I'm very pleased. I
have to talk to you about this quote you gave to The Sun. We've taken back control of the Novotel. I mean, is that going to be your next election slogan? We're taking back control of Novotel?
I wouldn't say that, but actually I think the Minister dealt with this quite well today. And
you did say that. That was your quote, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I'm not disowning it at all. No, but I think the Minister dealt with it quite well when he was explaining about the importance of hotels. And yes, obviously there are places people go and stay if they're visiting the area, but often hotels are used for wedding ceremonies, community events, and certainly the Novotel in Ipswich was. So it is going to be delivering community benefits for the economy and for the wider community. So I think it is taking back control.
How big an issue is this on the doorstep for you in Ipswich?
I think immigration, particularly for those who voted Conservative in 2019, I think is arguably the #1 issue. And I think it's, and we really need to deliver on both illegal migration, but actually legal migration, which I think most people in the country think is far too high, also needs to be brought under control as well.
So it's the #1 issue for you on the doorstep, you say, in parts of your constituency.
Yeah.
They can't think you're doing a great job on it, right? I mean, not just, like you say, not just the illegal immigration coming to the UK, but also the levels of migration now, of net migration.
But I think on the small boats, I think the key thing to tackle illegal migration is having a deterrent. I haven't seen an example of it being tackled effectively without a deterrent. And I think that there's every reason to believe that if we can get the Rwanda scheme...
There isn't really an example of it being tackled effectively by you guys and the policies you've got either.
But it's because our deterrent hasn't been implemented, because it's still stuck in the courts. But if we get the outcome we need from the Supreme Court and we can get those flights to Rwanda, I do think that will provide a deterrent. And I think we can do that, and we can make progress on that before the next general election. On legal migration, we've had some changes to the student visa dependence, which I think will, over time, lead to a significant reduction. But, I think it's important we point out, though, that, for example, in Ipswich, there's a pro-open borders rally outside the asylum hotel, attended by the Labour parliamentary candidates. So, yes, as the Conservative Party, we need to deliver on this. It's vital we do. But do I think the situation would be a lot worse with the Labour Party? Absolutely, yes. And that is a point I would be making unashamedly.
I'll talk to Labour, of course, about their own sort of issues on immigration, what they think about it. I just want to talk to you about something that you said recently at Conservative conference. You said it was not xenophobic to not want to feel like you're living in a foreign country. And I just wondered, what do you mean like that? What do you mean feeling like you're living in a foreign country?
Well, I think it's I think if you walk into your town centre, and I think if you're hearing almost people speaking English is almost a rarity. You're hearing...
That's not what people find, is it? Come on.
Well, I think lots of people do find that.
88% of people in Ipswich have English as their main language.
Lots of people, when they walk into their town centres and city centres across the country, often feel that way. And I do think there's examples where we've had a lack of integration. I think when you don't get integration, I think this can become a problem. When you get integration, diversity is a force for good. It's brilliant. It adds vibrancy to communities. When you don't get integration, when people don't make the effort to integrate, that's when you get the problems. And if you have people in your town centre, your city centre, who aren't making the effort to integrate, who are behaving in a way that isn't in keeping with what people would expect in that area...
What would that be, then, to behave in a way that wasn't in keeping with what people expect? So not speaking English?
But that's one element to it. Another element to it, for example, is we've got, in the town that I represent, we've got shop theft on the rise. And there is one community that is disproportionately behind the shop theft. And I've been to 12... Only a few months ago, I went to 12 different shops in the town centre with the police superintendent. They all said exactly the same thing. And these are people whose politics were all over the spectrum.
Do you have the data to back that up, or is that just what you've been told in shops?
Well, I mean, no, it's something which is, nobody disputes that locally. Nobody disputes that locally.
But has there been analysis done of...
There is analysis done. There's lots of...
Who by? Do you have it? Or?
But the police have the data. And I think, but every single shop we went to said that. And I think it is... We've got to be open about that. It's a challenge. And I think we've got to work with the community in question to try and deal with that problem. But I think it's... When you get integration, diversity is a force for good. Immigration is a force for good. When you don't get integration, it's a big problem. And I think, actually, that view that I've expressed is actually a mainstream view shared by a majority of people in the country. Not everyone, I'm not saying everyone, but actually I think you'll find there's a silent majority who would actually agree with that view. And I've had, since I made the comments I made at conference, I've had over 200 emails from constituents, and 90% of them have been positive.
OK, I'll be interested to see the data that you have on the shop thefts and the communities that you talk about. There's one other question that I am keen to get into as well. Your majority in Ipswich, I think, is 5,500 roughly.
Yeah.
Now, last week you had, I think, 2 constituencies with Conservative majorities around 4 times that crumbling. I mean, you must be worried.
Well, I mean, I think it's important. I mean, obviously they weren't great results. I don't think I can sit here and say that. But obviously, all the usual caveats do apply. Midterm by-election, when people are voting in a by-election, they know they're not choosing the next government. And also, I mean, there was some debate about whether this was because people were switching between the Conservatives to the Labour Party, or whether they were just staying at home, or whether they were voting for the Reform Party. My experience from canvassing, and that includes canvassing in Mid-Bedfordshire and in my own constituency, is that there are very few people who are switching to the Labour Party. I think there's a lot of people who are pretty fed up and a bit disillusioned, and they're not voting at the moment, and we've got to address that. We've got to give them reasons to vote Conservative, and I think we can do that.